Hi everyone, and welcome to our Apprenticeship Service webinar today. We're going to be looking at the latest update on the growth and skills offer and some of the corresponding Apprenticeship Service developments, and this session is aimed at employers. My name's Nick Duff from the Service Engagement team, and I'll be looking after you today and doing the hosting. So the plan for today's webinar is that we're going to run through some of the latest policy updates on foundation apprenticeships, shorter apprenticeships, so looking at the changes to the minimum apprenticeship duration, level 7 and also short courses. That way you'll be up to date with all of the recent announcements and understand some of the policy contexts for some of the developments that are happening within the apprenticeship service. And then what we'll do is we'll run through some of those changes that you'll see in your apprenticeship service account, and we'll pay particular attention to the new foundation apprenticeships. So we will show you how you can see what providers are offering foundation apprenticeships. We'll also show you how to use the Recruitment apprentice and find an apprenticeship functions to take on new foundation apprenticeships. And then we'll have a look at some of the new developments that let training providers add details, apprentice details into their apprenticeship service accounts directly from their individualized learner records. And we'll also show you how you approve those details as well. We'll then have a Q&A session and we'll look at some of your questions. And then after that, we'll spend a few minutes having a bit of a forward look at some of the upcoming developments within the apprenticeship service. So today I'm joined by actually quite a large gang doing the presenting. I've got Helen Kempley, who'll be giving us the policy update. And then I have Dominic Howard, Jane Farrington, and Siji Odunlami, Perdip Nihal, and Hannah Atkinson, who are all going to be covering off some of the apprenticeship service developments. And then towards the end, we've got Jason Poole, who will be giving us the insight into the future developments in the apprenticeship service in his future look. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to all of the presenters. I think we're ready to get started. So, if I can just change screen, there we go. So Helen, I think I'm handing over to you first. Are you ready?
I am, yes, thank you, Nick.
Excellent, thank you, Helen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Helen, and I'm Head of Growth and Skills Levy Programme Strategy. And as Nick mentioned, I'm going to talk about the policy context today. The government has announced a number of policy changes on apprenticeships over the past year, which I will briefly set out today. Now, firstly, shorter duration apprenticeships. Previously, apprenticeships had to have a duration of at least 12 months, but we have recognised that there are circumstances where a learner can achieve full occupational competence more quickly. Employers have said for a long time they would like more flexibility here. So to support this, we have reduced the minimum duration in legislation to 8 months, so that shorter apprenticeships are possible from this month, August 2025. Full occupational competence and the high quality standard of provision associated with the apprenticeship brand will still be a minimum requirement. This means training can be delivered and completed more quickly where that makes sense, either because that's how industry works or because an individual has significant prior learning that would have previously made them ineligible for apprenticeship training. So this can mean condensed apprenticeships, the same content but delivered more intensively, with the delivery model aligned to labour market norms, for example, seasonal workers or the academic year. Shorter apprenticeships, where some content can be removed without impacting the learner's ability to achieve full occupational competence. And accelerated apprenticeships, where learners have irrelevant prior learning, the duration can be reduced to a new minimum of 8 months, as there is no longer a 12-month floor. We have confirmed that the first shorter duration apprenticeships with a published typical duration of less than 12 months are dual fuel smart meter installer, healthcare support worker, production assistant, screen and audio, and postgraduate teacher. And we will continue to work with employers and Skills England to identify where this new flexibility will create other opportunities. Now, secondly, foundation apprenticeships. We know that many young people have not been able to access the opportunity of an apprenticeship, and that apprenticeship starts for young people have fallen significantly in recent years. The government wants to rebalance the system so that more young people are supported to access apprenticeships. A key step is the introduction of foundation apprenticeships from this month, which will give young people a foot in the door at the start of their working lives, while supporting the pipeline of new talent that employers need. In May, we announced further detail on foundation apprenticeships. They offer young people aged 16 to 21 and up to 25 for those with an education, health and care plan, or who are a care leaver, prisoner or prison leaver. They are a job with training aligned to a foundation occupation with off-the-job training and a minimum duration of 8 months. They are set at level 2. They have a broader focus than existing apprenticeships, and they cover employability behaviours and skills, as well as the technical knowledge and skills needed for the job. The first wave of foundation apprenticeships from this month are available in construction, engineering and manufacturing, digital and health and care, and they're listed on the slide there. Employers can receive an incentive of up to £2,000 to help with the costs of taking on one of these foundation apprentices. This is on top of the existing incentives and arrangements, such as the exemption from national insurance contributions for some apprentices. In May, we also announced changes to Level 7 apprenticeships. As I mentioned just now, apprenticeship starts by young people have fallen significantly in recent years. For young people under 25, they fell by almost 40% over the last decade. At the same time, in recent years, we have spent around 99% of the apprenticeships budget. Therefore, the government wants to ensure that public funding is prioritised towards those at the start of their working lives and at lower apprenticeship levels. It has decided to no longer fund Level 7 apprenticeships except for young apprentices under the age of 22 and those under 25 who are care leavers or have an education, health and care plan. This will take effect from the 1st of January 2026. All current Level 7 apprentices and any who start before 1st of January 2026 will be funded through to completion. This decision was informed by a wide range of evidence, including from Skills England and a wide range of stakeholders, and this was weighed up against the government's clear priorities. And finally, in June, we announced in the industrial strategy that we will introduce short courses funded through the Growth and Skills Levy, with the first wave available in April 2026. We will work with Skills England to determine the courses which will be prioritised in the first wave of rollout and the subsequent waves, and how those sit alongside apprenticeships and other training routes. This new flexible offer will be for targeted training that is shorter than an apprenticeship that meets employers' critical skills needs. We are developing a detailed specification and will test this with employers and providers. I know you will be keen to hear more about this topic. There isn't a great deal more I can say at the moment, but we will share more information in due course, and we will work to ensure this happens as soon as possible to allow employers, providers and learners to have time to prepare properly. And I'll hand back to you, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much, Helen. Thanks for giving us that policy context. If anybody's got any questions for Helen, then please do put them into the questions tab, and we'll try and get to those in the Q&A session. I can see a few of you are doing that already. And just before I hand over to Dom, we've had quite a few questions about the slides and access to the slides and access to the recordings. I'll cover this later, but we will be putting the recording onto the GoToWebinar platform. So where you registered, the same link, a recording will be up on there in a few days' time. And then once we've subtitled it and made it accessible, we'll place it onto our YouTube channel as well. And I'll tell you how you can access the YouTube recording and give you the link a little bit later on. So that's where we'll be putting the webinar recordings. As for slides, we're not sending slides out specifically because whilst there are a few slides in there, there's quite a few live demos that we're going to be walking through. So we don't have the demos to be able to send you in slide form. So it's best probably to go back and look at the recording if that's okay. Okay, so now we've got that policy context in mind, we're going to move on and have a look at some of the developments actually within the apprenticeship service that take account of some of those changes. And we're going to focus on, I think, particularly on foundation apprenticeships. So up next, we've got Dominic Howard. He's going to give us a demo of the updates that have been made in Find Apprenticeship Training that will help you guys as employers find the training providers that can deliver foundation apprenticeships. So hopefully, Dom, I can see your demo. So are you ready for your part?
Yeah, is that screen sharing and coming through clear, Nick?
Yeah, I've got the screen share. Thanks, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So my name's Dominic, and I'm the delivery manager in the Apprenticeship Service. One of the services my team owns is Find Apprenticeship Training that you can see on screen right now. So hopefully lots of you are familiar with this service, but as a quick overview, it's the marketplace for employers to see what training is available and then which providers can deliver that training for them. You can also compare and shortlist providers in a way that suits you, giving you the best information possible to make an informed decision for your employee. So I'm going to show a few changes that we've made to the service in line with growth and skills, and in particular, foundation apprenticeships. So I'll just start by searching for a course. So for example, if I search for bricklayer and press search, okay, so you should see the results page here. So it shows 3 different apprenticeship courses. The bottom result is a foundation apprenticeship identified by a new pink tag to make it easier to spot. You'll also notice the duration, which is now shorter at 8 months. However, this new shorter duration is not just applicable to foundation courses, but on this page it is the only one that is shorter than the 12 months. If I wasn't sure what specific course I wanted to look for, I would just go back, and if I search for all courses and move down here, I can see the new apprenticeship type filter. And if I drop that down here, it will show 2 new options for filtering. So we've got foundation apprenticeship and apprenticeship. If I wanted to filter for foundation apprenticeship and then press apply, it brings back all foundation apprenticeships, and then I can decide how to filter further from there. We've also added some useful hint text underneath the apprenticeship type filter, just to explain at a high level the context of what you're filtering on and what it means for you as the user when managing the service. If I go to one of our foundation apprenticeships, I will see an updated course details page. I will scroll down. Okay, so I can see the updated details section. So it includes a useful description of what a foundation apprenticeship is and then who can start one. You'll also see an updated foundation incentive payment detail. And I'll just open this out here. This is a really good detail for anyone who's looking to find out the context for foundation apprenticeships, just who they're aimed at, and again, who can start a foundation apprenticeship. And then if I go to the drop down here, there's also an updated technical skills and knowledge with an employability focus. further down here. Just gives more detail that is different from an apprenticeship and a foundation apprenticeship. And then finally, if I go right to the bottom here, there's a useful column which just shows what the expected progression would be. So if you started this foundation apprenticeship, and then what apprenticeship would you then expect to go on to, or what core skills would you then learn to progress you on to the next thing? In this state, it's engineering operative level 2. And that's it for the changes in terms of foundation. So I will pass back to you, Nick.
Cool. Thanks very much, Dom. Yeah, thanks for going through that on finding apprenticeship training. So now we've looked at how you can identify a training provider that can deliver foundation apprenticeships. You might like then to consider how you recruit an apprentice. So Jane and Siji will be running through a demo, taking us through that next part of the journey. So they're going to be showing us how to recruit an apprentice, how recruit an apprentice and find an apprenticeship have both been updated as well. So Jane, if you're ready, I think we're handing the control over to you and Siji now.
So hi everybody, my name's Jane, Jane Farrington. I'm a product manager on the Apprenticeship Service, and I look after recruit and find an apprenticeship. And so I know you're all familiar with our recruit and apprentice area of your service, and you've already seen the pink tag, but we're just going to run you through how an advert has changed for foundation apprenticeships. And then we're going to show you what it will look like on Find an Apprenticeship. So as always, I'm going to hand over to Siji, who's our amazing tester, and make sure everything's working perfectly for you before it goes live. And he's going to run us through how to create an apprenticeship advert on Recruit.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you all. So what I've done to try and make things move a bit quicker for us, as we probably familiar that we do have a long task list. Yeah, is I've created a draft apprenticeship or advert already, and to show you where the changes have come in, particularly on these, we would go first into training course, where we've made changes where we now present foundation apprenticeships within the list of courses that we provide. If I do select this one, which we have, we get that confirmation, just as Dom previously mentioned, about the pink tag, and also a mention of the duration as well, and the label identifying what type of apprenticeship it is. So that's the first indication that you would see when selecting a foundation apprenticeship while creating an advert. The other bits that you might come through is also within the task list. We have further down there within requirements and prospects, where for a normal apprenticeship, you would be required to enter skills and qualifications. In this instance, for foundations, they are not required to have any skills or qualifications. You would still need to complete what they will be doing after, what they could be doing after the apprenticeship, and any other requirements. Otherwise, those two fields are grayed out and do not need to be entered. On the check your answers page, after the apprenticeship has been, details have been completed, we do replay essentially everything that you would have entered or selected. And down there as well, you would see that in requirements and prospects, we only have expectations around what their career progression would be afterwards, and any other requirements, removing skills and qualifications. You can then go ahead and submit or choose to preview. So if we submit, that would go through the QA process as normal, and then when it gets approved, it presents as live. So if I show an example of what a live advert would look like, it would look something like this when it loads up. So a live advert would look something like this on FAA when it's displayed. So details about the apprenticeship, foundation label, and information about who can apply. So With foundation apprenticeships, the introductory courses that help young people get started in an industry. You do not need to have any specific qualifications or experience to apply. Anyone between 16 and 21 can start a foundation apprenticeship. If you're between 22 to 20 and 24, you can start if you have an EHC plan, or in care, or have been in care, or in prison, or have been in prison. So those are essential criteria that need to be met to be able to apply for a foundation apprenticeship. Then the other thing we wanted to talk about, and I would hand over this part to Jane, was about sharing applications.
And I'll just say on the application part here, this text is tailored to the age of the person that is applying, because to apply through our service, we have the person's date of birth. So if they're 16 to 21, they will see this text. If they're aged between 22 and 24, there is a change in the text, and anybody over 25 does not get the submit button on an application, so they won't be able to apply, because over 25 and over obviously are not eligible for foundations. So that should make it easier when you have people looking at a foundation apprenticeship. It should stop anybody applying that is the wrong age. Thanks, Sidge. The only other thing that I was going to talk to you about while I had you all on the call is the sharing applications area of Recruit. And I know that's not something that we're covering today, but I just wanted to highlight this area has been iterated greatly, and we are looking at improvements to it all the time. So if I can encourage yourselves as employers to talk to your providers to use this area of sharing applications. It's where a provider can place an advert for you and then share the applicants through our service. So it will save you time and effort. If you're having any problems, please contact us, and please give us any feedback at all that you have on the sharing applications area of the service. And that's it from us for foundations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jane, and thank you very much, Siji. Really good for you to go through that. Okay, so now we've been through the recruitment process, and hopefully you've been able to then to look at an apprentice that you are looking to start. What we want to do is show you some of the improvements and simplifications that were made, particularly in the training providers account, to help them add apprentice details, so new apprentice details into the apprenticeship service, and show you the employer approval process that goes along with that. So I've got Perdip and Hannah, who will be talking us through the new option, like I say, where providers can add apprentice details, or for that matter, foundation apprentice details onto the service using data taken directly from their individualised learner record, or ILR, and they'll show us how you will still be controlling that journey by giving your approval. So Perdip, if you're there, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nick, and good afternoon, everyone. As Nick mentioned, I'm Perdip Nahal, Product Manager of the Employer Account in the Apprenticeship Service. So I'll be giving an update on the work my team has been doing to simplify adding new apprentice in the Employer Account, the provider account and related approvals process, which also applies to the new foundation apprenticeships mentioned earlier. So what you see on this slide gives a high-level overview of adding new apprentices and payments to providers. The current service requires employers to enter apprentice details unless the provider has been given permission or received an apprentice request from the employer. The details entered in the apprenticeship service requires approval from both employer and provider to access funding. Subsequently, providers input the data into the individual learner record, also known as the ILR, which must be submitted to the Department for Education each month. It is essential that the data in both the apprenticeship service and the ILR match, otherwise discrepancies referred to as data locks will occur. Analysis conducted in the previous year revealed that there were 243,384 records that had data mismatches, resulting in £40.7 million worth of funding held back, and that impacted 91% of providers. These records all required resolution, including reapproval of apprentice records by employers. This also impacted our support teams, who received 3,612 related inquiries within a 12-month period, seeking assistance from our users to resolve data locks and release funds for training delivered to apprentices. Okay. And to simplify the current design, we will look to implement changes that streamline the creation of apprentice requests. The new approach will be provider-led, utilising the ILR learner data submitted to the DfE as a single source of truth, with the approval process remaining employer-controlled. So this adjustment will reduce the administrative burden on employers, particularly SMEs, the smaller micro-employers, and also help minimise data locks, simplify the approvals process, and facilitate timely release of funds to providers. Ultimately, we aim to enable our users to focus more on training and upskilling apprentices while running their business, and reduce the effort required for our engaging with the service. So the new solution, which had been developed and tested with providers, was officially released on 30th of June. It has now been successfully utilised by providers with appropriate permissions, along with employers submitting apprentice requests to add apprentices. By leveraging the ILR data as a single source of truth, the solution has achieved a 100% success rate in apprentice requests with no data locks, effectively addressing the user pain points previously identified and meeting our objectives for a streamlined user journey. I will now hand over to Hannah, who will provide a demonstration of the new solution and changes employees will see when they receive the apprentice request from providers.
Hannah, are you okay, ready to share?
Yes, ready to go. Thanks, Nick.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi, my name's Hannah. I'm a content designer on the streams of work that look at the add an apprentice journey for employers and providers. I'm just going to talk you through the add an apprentice journey via the ILR that Perdit was just talking you through, and what that looks like for providers, and then I'll show you how that will come through to you as an employer. So on the provider homepage here, we'll go to add new apprentices. And then this is a new option here at the top, select learners from ILR. So I'm going to select that. And then you can add to an existing cohort as you can now, or you can create a new cohort. And the existing cohort can be one that the provider has previously saved as a draft, or one that you've set up as an employer. For the purpose of this demo, I'll just select a new cohort. And then we choose our employer. In this case, it's Bambino's Day Nursery. We confirm our employer, and this is the same as the journeys that providers are used to already. And then this is one of our new pages. So this is where you select the learner from the ILR. And what shows in this page here will be the learners that are connected to the employer, and also any learners that aren't linked to an employer in the ILR yet. And they'll show learners that have a future start date outside of the that you won't see learners outside of the future start date that the reservation window is. You can search and filter as per usual. So we're going to go ahead and select Alan here. And then we can choose our funding reservation if there's one set up already. And if not, you can create a new reservation. So I'll just select this one here. And then this is where we check the details. So this is what's slightly different, in that all the details are already there for the provider. This is what they would have been inputting manually. And most of these details you will have to change in the ILR file if you realise that here that there is something wrong, and that's to avoid those data locks that Perdit was talking about. There are a couple of details that providers will be able to change, such as the email address, if for some reason it's different. They can also add the standard option, as they can now, and they can also add a reference if they want to. And this is also the point where they would add any RPL data, which doesn't come through from the ILR currently. So we'll just go ahead and add some data here. And hopefully it should show up. And there we go, we've got the RPL added there, and that will also have amended the price. So we'll confirm and add, And then this is the approve page where the provider can just double check any details. They can go back into view and see that page again and amend anything they need to. And then they'll either go ahead and approve this and notify the employer, or they can send to the employer to add any other details. So we'll save and submit that. Oh, sorry, you can also at this stage add another apprentice if you want to, using this button, and that will just take you back to that list of apprentices and you can add another one that way. And then that's sent to the employer for checking. And at this stage, that's when you, the employer, come into play. So this is your homepage here, Bambino's Day Nursery. You'll go to apprentices. You'll go to your apprentice requests, and then the request will be there waiting for you. We'll just go through to this one here. It's not exactly the same as the one I just went through. Forgive me, we're working in a prototype here, so it's not exactly the same, but we've got Alan there at the top, and we would have gone on to add a couple more. So you can check through the details. You can view the details of the apprentice here, make sure everything's correct. You can add your own reference if you like to. And then you can go ahead and approve the details, or you can request changes from your training provider if when you're checking through those there's something that you've spotted isn't quite right, and then that training provider would have to go back to resubmit the ILR file and update it that way. So we're going to approve this one, save and submit, and then the training provider will get a notification to tell them that you've approved the details. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Perdip, you've got another couple of slides, so I'll hand back to you. You can carry on.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And as you just saw there, brilliant demonstrated by Hannah, the introduction of new features while we're preserving existing functionality will help maintain familiarity. Simultaneously, it's accelerating the approvals process. One thing that the employers may have noticed when they received their apprentice request is that it was read-only. So as it stands today, you can edit the details to preserve the data that's coming from the individual learner record when the provider is creating that request, adding the details. It will be read only. So the edit, you will notice that there was you're not able to edit anymore. But if you do want to request changes, then you could just put that in the free text field. And from what we've seen to date with the approved requests that have been raised by the providers, it's resulted in twofold increase in the rate of approved requests compared to the previous manual add process, whilst it's also reduced the administrative burden on employers. There is no change for non-levy employers to reserve funds, and this should continue to be done in advance as is done today. So the demonstration shown by Hannah there was also showing a non-levy employer's account. For the provider, levy-paying employers, they wouldn't see the reservation option. It's also important to note there's a subtle distinction regarding the end date that will come from the individual learner record for the apprentice, as that wouldn't account for the period allocated for the endpoint assessment. However, this will not affect the employer, as the provider will only be paid for the total agreed apprenticeship price over the period in which the training is delivered, excluding the cost for the endpoint assessment. Okay, so just to reiterate and benefit from the updated and streamlined Add Apprentice process, employers should configure permissions for providers to add apprentices on their behalf, or for those who prefer a more hands-on approach, they can log into their employer account and send the provider an Add Apprentice request. Providers will use the learner data they have already submitted to the DfE to populate apprentice details and send these for employer approval. Employers will continue to receive requests for new apprentices as they do today, allow them to review and approve the details. If necessary, employers can request changes from the provider by utilizing the free text field in the apprentice request form. And providers will then update the learner data and resubmit it for employer approval if required. Okay, and hopefully that was useful and gave an update on the changes that we're making. I'll hand back now to Nick for Q&A.
Cool. Thanks, Bernard. And thank you. A big thanks to Helen, Dominic, Jane, Siji, Perdip, and Hannah for all of your inputs. So really detailed run through the service and some of the policy context. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so we'll move on to the questions now, and we'll have a look at some of the questions that have come in. And thank you everybody for submitting all the questions that you've asked. So panel, if you're ready, I'll start going through some of the questions. Jason, can I come to you first, if I can? There was a question about the age limit for apprenticeship funding. I think this was sort of probably triggered by the conversations about the age limit for foundation, but could you give some clarity for the age limit for apprenticeship funding, please?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, just really to confirm that apprenticeships are for all ages. I think for some years now we've seen a real extension in the range of ages that apprenticeships are being taken up by, as well as the types and the size and the sectors of employers. So yes, apprenticeships are generally widely available, and indeed occasionally I do get the question about who the oldest apprentice is that we've got in the system, and I'm pleased to say that whilst we have very few people who are over retirement age, there are indeed a small handful of people who see the benefits of apprenticeships into older age, but really importantly that government focus on putting training opportunities in the hands of young people, so that we can respond to the needs that employers will have going forward to drive our economic growth and social mobility.
Okay, thank you very much. Helen, I've got a few questions for you if I can. So the first one, so there's a question here about confirming that if you want any upskilling for existing staff on level 7s, that we need to get them on now, really. Is that correct?
Yes, so if you want to start someone on a level 7 apprenticeship, yes, you would need to do it before the 1st of January 2026. And more broadly, then beyond that, once that age restriction for level 7 comes in, government is encouraging employers to consider investing in this training themselves, where it presents a good return on investment for over 21s. And many other training routes are available at level 7, and obviously included as well the loan funded graduate system, which existed before level 7 apprenticeships and exists alongside it.
Yeah, I think we'll carry on with the level 7 theme here. So question about, does the level 7 apprenticeship rules apply to the apprenticeship standard or the level of the degree being studied?
So the changes apply to level 7 standards.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And there's I don't know if this question is more of a comment. So realistically, how would somebody under 22 be in a position to complete a level 7 apprenticeship, given that most of the entry requirements require considerable experience?
Yeah, so we appreciate and recognise that, yeah, different level 7 apprenticeships have different entry requirements, and the under 22 exemption is going to work more for some than others. So there are some where you do have a much higher number of under 22 apprentices on level 7 apprenticeships, solicitor and accountant being a couple of them. There are a number of others that have a small number but still do have some people on level 7 apprenticeships in that age group, so there could be scope there for that to increase. But yeah, it is correct that it's going to work better for some of the standards than others.
Okay, cool. And then one more for you, Helen, if I can, at this point. So there's a question about if an apprentice is aged 16 to 18 and the employer is due a second incentive payment, will the incentive payment still be paid if the apprentice completed early and is no longer on the programme at days 365?
Yes. Now, I think this is about the shorter duration apprenticeships. So if so, the final payment of those additional payments will be made on day 242 to ensure that that is not missed out.
Okay. Is that in the funding rules? Is that confirmed in the funding rules?
I'm sure it is, yes. I mean, yeah, as people appreciate, I'm not an expert on all of these policy areas, but this is from our official question and answer document. So Yeah, I'm sure it must be in the funding rules. Yeah.
Thanks.
I believe it'll be in the technical funding guidance, if that
Yeah.
helps.
Thanks, Jason. And while I've got you, Jason, there's another question for you, Ken. So we've had a number of these actually. Employers asking how they can test employers for shorter courses. So how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Nick. It's really good to see a number of you who are interested in becoming involved. So we will take a note of everyone that's indicated that they'd like to find out more, and we'll be in touch. If before the end of this session I can grab a link to somewhere where you can register interest, then I'll let you know before the end as well.
Cool, thank you. And then a question, and I'll take this one because it's unusual that I can get to answer any of the questions on webinars, but I found one that I can answer. There's a question about finding out about the webinar by accident and asking how we're communicating the webinar program to employers. So we do email out to every employer email that's associated to your Apprenticeship Service accounts. So everybody that's on that account should get an email. And obviously, whilst we're aware that not everybody in your organisations is linked to your Apprenticeship Service account, if you do see something and you think it's going to be relevant to your colleagues, you can always sort of forward that email on to them so that other people in your organisations can see it. But yeah, how we do this is when we have the webinars for employers, everybody on the Apprenticeship Service account with an email gets notification. So that's how we do that. Okay, Jason, another quick question for you. Is there anything that an employer needs to do to prepare to utilise the growth and skills levy for short courses for their staff?
That's a lovely segue from the answer you just gave, Nick. So I'd just like to encourage anyone that hasn't yet registered for an Apprenticeship Service account to do so. We've got over 300,000 employers from across England who are registered and set up with an account. We've done quite a lot of work over the last year to simplify the registration process. We work seamlessly with HMRC to reduce the amount of data that we need to collect, and we've got a data sharing arrangement in place with them to help speed up the registration journey. But if you do that, you will not only prepare yourself for taking advantage of the full range of training opportunities that are available through the service, but you'll also, in doing so, get yourself signed up for invitations to events that we think you might be interested in, like today.
Okay, thank you. Helen, will the shorter levy funded courses only be available in the creative industries and advanced manufacturing sectors?
Yeah, so the short answer to that is no. It won't just be those two sectors. So I understand why you've asked that question, because they were name checked in the industrial strategy and what I showed on my slide, but they were given as examples of industrial strategy government priority sectors. So yes, it won't just be for those two sectors.
And then while I've got you, there's a question about will more apprenticeships be made into foundation apprenticeships, or will there be more foundation apprenticeships coming?
So we are looking at where we could do more foundation apprenticeships in areas like hospitality. So that's something we're actively looking at the moment. So nothing more confirmed, but yes, we're looking at it.
Cool, thank you. And Dom, if I can, a couple for you. There was a comment about the provider listings on Find Apprenticeship Training and how up to date they are. And there's a comment that some of the lists that providers are offering are no longer delivering. Any comment on that?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, thanks for the question. So we rely on the providers to keep their standard offering up to date, and it's a requirement. They've got an agreement with the department to make sure that what they offer is kept up to date at all times. So we are reliant on that data coming from the providers themselves. But if you do know of specific providers where it's not up to date, or what they're showing on Find Apprenticeship Training is not correct, then obviously don't share details on here. But if you could please just raise a service ticket with our service desk, that would be really helpful. That'll come through to the internal DFE team, and we can then pick up with the provider to make sure they're aware that they need to keep that up to date and make sure that employers can see a true reflection of the marketplace when they go onto the site.
Yeah, and we will be reminding providers on there's a webinar for providers tomorrow, so we'll be reminding providers to make sure they've updated their details on their directory as well. Cool, thank you for that. Then Dom, another one, if I can, are we going to include employer and apprentice reviews against each provider on Find Apprenticeship?
Yes, we do. Yep. Yep, it's on there, and actually it wasn't related to growth and skills, so we didn't go through it today, but there's a relatively new piece of functionality within the service where if you go onto the homepage of the site, you can now do a provider search. So if you know of a provider that you have heard about or you want to work with, you can go direct to that provider and see an overview of them as a whole. So you can see their achievement rate as a whole, you can see their feedback data from both the employer and the provider side, and you get a whole overall picture really quickly of where that provider sits and what they do and what they're offering from the homepage. So yeah, by all means, go onto the site, search provider link, and you can go directly to them and have a look at their feedback.
Cool, thanks. Jane, question for you. In sort of Recruit and Apprenticeship, how long does it take for an advert to be approved?
24 hours they should be approved, Nick.
Okay, thank you. That's quick. Thank you for that. Nice answer. And then another question, a couple more for you, Jane, if I can. On the recruitment site, if the candidate is at 25 or over and they have an EHCP plan, will they be prevented in applying?
Yes, they will be prevented in applying. Nobody over the age of 25 can apply. So that EHCP plan only applies to people who are over the age of 21. So it's between 22 to 24-year-olds with that an EHCP can apply. But anybody over 25 cannot apply for a foundation apprenticeship.
Okay, thank you. And then again, a couple more for Jane. Is there a minimum time the job advert has to be live for on the shared service?
It's 14 days to place an advert on our Recruit service, so your advert must run for 14 days or more.
Sorry, was that 14 days or more?
Yeah.
Yeah, so minimum 14 days. Okay, yeah, cool, thank you. And then, as many employers do, we use our own recruitment portal to manage all of our vacancies, including apprenticeships. Are there any plans to integrate the recruit function to other systems?
So at the moment in Recruit, you can place the advert with us and then ask that the applicant apply through your own service. And that would be the only way that we would be able to integrate with yourselves as employers that wanted to take the adverts into your own service. So you would give us a URL and we would direct people off onto their own employer sites.
Okay, and then similar question regarding recruitment system, we ask applicants to apply via our own jobs page. How do we filter out applicants who don't meet the age requirements?
So when we rebuilt Find an Apprenticeship recently, when an applicant now wants to apply via an employer's own website, they still have to sign in and make an account with us. So we will know the applicant's age before they are able to apply on the employer's website. So the dynamic system will still work. So anyone over 25 won't get that apply link.
Cool, thank you. Jason, a couple of questions for you. What's happening with the expiry of funds tool? Will there be a replacement? I don't think we've covered that today, but I think it's an interesting question to ask nonetheless.
No problem at all. Thanks very much, Nick. Yeah, we're making some changes to the way that we display information about the balance in employers' accounts. So there won't be a direct replacement for that tool, but we are expecting to release a new tool that allows you to better understand the funds in your account, and we'll keep you posted on the progress with that when that's available.
Thank you. And then I think actually I'm going to ask you, Jason, but Perdit might want to help chip into this. So for clarity, when adding details into the Apprenticeship Service account, do we use the end date of the practical period of training or the end date of the apprenticeship?
Yeah, so I think Perdip has answered this one a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to reiterate this point because we've had this question from a number of employers. So in the future, this shouldn't be an issue because we will always pull the end date for the apprenticeship training through from the ILR and into the service. But we know that there are a number of end dates that are used in apprenticeship terminology, and this is the end date for the training. So if the endpoint assessment, for example, is due to take place sometime after the training has been completed, then we're looking for the apprenticeship training date, not the date after which the assessment has taken place. We're going to put some content into the service at that point, particularly where employers are being asked to give their approval, just to make that clear, so that if any employers have got any concerns about a mismatch in what their expectations are, they can just see the context for why they might be seeing the date that they are.
Thank you, Jason. I'm going to ask two more questions. I think we're going to need to move on just to give a little bit of time for other people to finish their presentations. So Perdip, there's a question here. Will the employer need to give permissions to the providers so that the providers can add an apprentice directly from their ILR?
Yes, that's correct. So to enable the providers to add apprentices from the ILR, the employers should set permissions, and when they go to set permissions, they will see that there are the options there. The one they need to select is allow providers to add apprentices on their behalf, and that also allows providers to reserve funds for non-levy employers. Where for any reason that the employer doesn't want to give permissions to the provider, what they can do, which we'll show shortly in some slides, is they can send the apprentice request for the provider to add apprentice details. So instead of in the current process, the journey, rather than adding the apprentice details, there is an option, a radio button options, where it says add the details myself or send the request to providers to add. So you can send the request for providers to add the details. That will then give them permissions to add apprentice details into that apprentice request and send it back to the employer for approval.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Peter. We're running slightly behind, so what I'll do is I'll draw a veil over the Q&A session. I'm aware that there are a number of questions that we haven't got round to. Like I said, I will be we'll be having a look at those questions, and we'll issue any clarification points on the key themes that come out from those questions to everybody on the call via an email in a few weeks' time. But thank you for submitting your questions. Thank you very much to the panel for answering the questions that you managed to do in the time that we've got available. So if we can just move on. Okay, we're going to forward look. So we've gone through the policy, we've gone through the AS development updates, and now we want to just spend a couple of minutes looking a little bit further into the future. So as Perdip just trailed, then we're going to bring him back, and he'll go through our thinking on the series of changes that are going to happen in the Add Apprentice and the employer approvals journey. So Perdip, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Okay, yeah, just to follow on from the question there, I was mentioning, as shown on this slide, our future design for the employer apprentice is to reflect the changes that the providers adding apprentices from the ILR. So the existing journey that the employers see in their account, which is add an apprentice, will be renamed to send an apprentice request. This has recently gone through testing and feedback with employers, so there is some revisions that will be made to these designs to reflect any feedback as well. And the updated journey will incorporate the changes that we've outlined and remove the option to manually add apprentices details, and that will be both in the provider and the employer accounts, as these features will no longer be necessary. However, the send an apprentice request feature that retains existing functionality of the existing add apprentice journey, where employers can request providers to add apprentice details on their behalf. And this will remain useful when employers not yet set permissions for a provider to add apprentices or wishes to use transfer funds. As illustrated in the images, the process has been significantly streamlined, requiring employers to simply select the funding type, search for and confirm the training provider, enter any details not already shared with their provider, and submit the request. The provider will then return the apprentice request with learner details added from the ILR for the employer to review and approve. So that was our future outlook and design, and we'll be doing some further rounds of testing with the employers before it goes live, and we'll get a notification and further comms out for them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for it. And Jason, sorry that I've squeezed time on for you and your input, but yeah, I'd like to introduce Jason Poole, our head of apprenticeship operations and support, so that he can sum up the session and just take a few moments looking at the things that are likely to be coming over the hill in the apprenticeship service in the next few months.
Thanks very much, Nick. Just a big thanks to all of our presenters today. There's a lot of work that's gone on over the past months to release all of the changes ready for the 1st of August, and you'll see some of the things that you've heard about today on the screen here. But looking forward, we are now very focused on the changes that we need to make for the new short courses coming in from next year, and also the work to further develop the use of the individualized learning record that training providers submit to us to reduce the admin burden on you as employers. We recognize that that's a really important feedback point that you've given to us over the years, and we're confident that this presents a real benefit to us. A couple of other things just to highlight. The first one there is digital certification. So we've been issuing apprenticeship certificates through the service since 2017. So we're looking now to move into providing digital certificates alongside those. They can be shared more easily. They allow employers to more easily validate an apprentice's competence and achievement of an apprenticeship, and they also allow individuals to share their successes more widely, which is obviously great for them and great for the program. And then one which is probably quite invisible to a lot of you is the way that we calculate the payments that we make to training providers in the background. And whilst that's one of the most important aspects of my role and responsibility in the department, from the perspective of the program, the changes that we are making in this space mean that we will be better placed to respond more quickly to future policy developments, and that includes supporting the short courses. I'll bring that to a close and hand back over to Nick, but thanks everyone for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, and sorry that we've cut that slightly short. For those of you that are still with us, just bear with me just for another minute or two, just while I run through the last couple of slides. So just wanted to remind you that about our YouTube channel, which is at DFE Sector Comms. As you can see from the screen, we've got 3 playlists on that channel, and the recording for today's session will be in the Apprenticeship Service webinar recordings playlist in about 3 weeks' time or so, once we've edited down and made it accessible. We'll also have all of our apprenticeship support videos covering the different functions of the Apprenticeship Service using the Apprenticeship Service playlist, and videos created to support the delivery of apprenticeships are available in the Apprenticeship Support video playlist. So subscribe to that channel, click on the bell icon, get alerts when new content is uploaded. And then on to my final slide. On this slide, just a couple of places for you to go to access support. There's a PDF document that you can now download from your control panel with the links on. So look in the handouts tab for that. So ways to stay up to date with information about apprenticeships, apprenticeships.gov.uk, great place to go for latest information. For training provider colleagues, they have a peer-led discussion forum called Further Education Training Providers Community. To register for any of our future webinars, there's a link on there as well, which is the place that you register for today. And by Friday, there'll also be a recording of today's session on that link as well. And that recording will stay available for about a month or so, just to give us time to get the recording onto YouTube. If you've got any questions about the Apprenticeship Service in general, use the self-service support tool, or you can email the support team as well, and their details are on the handout as well. Okay, so sorry for rushing through that last little part. That's it for today. That brings us to the end of our session. Thank you very much for joining with us and staying with us, and thanks to all of the presenters for their insights and inputs. And remember, as you leave, please complete the short survey and let us know what you thought. So thank you, everybody, and goodbye, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.